I'm James. I'm a grateful believer in Jesus Christ, and I celebrate victory over drugs and alcohol since September of 2016. I came from a good, non-abusive family. Parents have always been supportive. My parents drank alcohol and my friends drank and used drugs. I thought it was pretty normal. I thought there was nothing wrong with this. It was something I did for fun. I was not causing any issues or pain in my life. I enjoyed doing it, so I continued. There were small hiccups on the way. At 16, I got a possession of marijuana charge. In 21, I received the DUI. But other than being on probation, there were no real repercussions for this. At 20, I came home. My roommates had brought a friend. She was holding a bottle of Jack Daniels and had on leather pants. Perfect, I thought. We started a relationship and got married several years later. We bought a house with a white fence, had a child, and looked like a perfectly normal family. During this time, I started working shift work and doing a lot of rotations. It started to affect my sleep. I knew alcohol would help me get tired, so I started using it as a sleep aid. I also became lonely at this time because my work and my wife's work were completely opposite schedules. I would go a whole month without seeing her or my son. Alcohol became the substitute for intimacy. I also found out that my wife had a health issue. I was terrified that she would deteriorate physically. The need for alcohol increased until I was drinking the equivalent of an 18-pack of strong beer a day or more. But since alcohol was such a big part of my everyday life, I did not think there was anything wrong with this. My wife was the first one to think that there was something wrong. There was a lot of arguing. She was worried I was drinking too much and would destroy my health and the marriage. She asked me to stop, and I told her I would. I thought it was all her fault, and she was trying to change who I was. To quell some of the family discord, I agreed to go to marriage counseling. I lied to the counselor. I also joined an outpatient alcoholic rehab, lied the entire time. I even showed up drunk and had beer in my truck in the cooler, waiting for me when I got out of the meeting. I had no intention of stopping. I kept beer in my car for when I got off of work and would regularly go over to a friend's house to drink. I continued to believe there was nothing wrong with this. The first time I started to think something was wrong was one night while coming home from work. I stopped at a friend's house and drank some beer, smoked some weed, and headed home. A bicyclist rode right in front of me. There was no way to avoid the accident. He was really messed up. A witness called the police, and I was terrified they're going to test me for drugs and alcohol. This would have been my second DUI, and there would be no doubt there would have been jail time. My wife had found out I had been lying to her, and the strain on the marriage would be intense, to say the least. They did not test me. I went home and continued to drink, but something was telling me I needed to cut down. I eventually told my wife about the drinking. Because I was sick of hiding it, I was living a lie and wanted to come clean. We came up with a plan. We decided that I would only drink on weekends and vacations. With my incredible willpower, I was able to stick with that for about 2 days. A week or so later, it was time for Christmas vacation at work. My son was a year old. I got off work on a Thursday, and it was the official start of my Christmas vacation. I stopped at the store, grabbed a beer, thinking I would use just one to get me to help go to sleep. I got home, backed into the driveway, was listening to Alice in Chains on the radio. I was smoking weed. I cracked open the beer, took a sip, and I hear, "Seriously, James?" I see my wife holding my baby, yelling at me about drinking alcohol. I said it's the start of my vacation. She did not want to hear it and just drove away, leaving my home and my wife, whom I've been with for 11 years, and my 1-year-old son. 2 hours later, I picked up meth for the first time in 11 years. I had never used a needle before, but that day, I just dove right in. I did not go home. I stayed at a friend's house. I went a whole hog into drugs and alcohol, the lifestyle that accompanied it. I did not care what drugs they were. I took them all. There was so much pain and guilt from leaving my wife and child, I had to do something to numb it. Drugs were the easy answer. My wife and I both agreed that a divorce was best. I did not fight it. I just went with it. I got the house. She and my son moved in with one of her friends. I moved back into my house with 2 other addicts. I continued that lifestyle, all the while trying to numb the pain. I started a relationship with my best friend's girlfriend and completely destroyed his family. We have never been on good terms since and have barely spoken. Thinking about that makes my stomach turn. I was good at that, destroying lives. I left the path of destruction in my wake wherever I went. That girl moved in with me, and we fed each other's addiction. I still had a career, making almost $30 an hour, so I was able to function and was still able to support my addiction. One day, after I had been awake for 7 days straight, I showed up at my job. I was acting suspiciously, and they took me for a drug test. I was positive for every single drug on the test. I was fired immediately. The career I had for 8 years that helped build my life, my family, and everything I had was gone in a flash. I had a 401k to fall back on and cashed in my retirement money for $37,000. And just like any true addict, I did not pay a single bill. I spent all the money on drugs and stuff for me and my friends. My ex-wife and son did not see a penny of it. The money ran out, the girlfriend left, big surprise. I decided to start selling meth to support my lifestyle. I was selling pretty big, and when I did not get the money that was owed to me, I used violence and physical pain to get it. I sold it to a lot of people. Who knows how many lives were destroyed during that time. I received 5 possession of meth charges in 6 months, along with other drug possession charges. That is when I became a convicted felon. I stole cars, broke into houses, would steal other people's drugs and help them look for it. I knew that I was hurting people and myself. I knew this was wrong, but I did not care. The only thing I cared about was me. The police were after me hard. They were surveilling my house that was full of using addicts. I went out of town, came home, my house was emptied of everything, even my clothes. I found out it was my best friend who did it. I could not live this way anymore. I could not trust anyone. The police were constantly around. I decided I should go home to my mom and my dad's house. I continued to use at their house. I had a new girlfriend. At her house one night, the police came banging through the door, had a warrant for my arrest. While in the cop car, there was a sense of relief that would be doing this anymore. There was this overwhelming feeling that I would not have to fight anymore. I surrendered, but I did not know who or to what I was surrendering. I just felt alone. I spent 4 months in jail. I got new charges. I got the custody of my son revoked. I spent 2 months in the Polk County Jail, 2 in, 2 out. I was trying to get into Tri-County rehab instead of going to prison. I had no luck with that. I started talking to a friend in the jail with me. He told me about God. He told me that I needed to turn everything over to God. He told me about a prayer circle they had in the jail every night. That night, I decided to get into the prayer circle. Everything else I'd tried, did not work. I just thought I would try something different. We circled up and said the Lord's Prayer. After I went to my cell, and at the advice of my friend, I did something I had never done before in my life. I got on my knees and prayed. I told God, I don't know you. I want to know you. I want you in my life. Whatever your will is for me, show it to me, and I will do that. Whether it's prison, rehab, jail, probation, whatever, I will accept it. Just show me what I need to do. I worked this third step and didn't even know it. A feeling of relief came over me. I felt renewed and refreshed. That knot that I constantly had in my stomach went away. I slept great that night. In the morning, I woke up to my door and the cell was open. It was supposed to be the bottom tier that was open, not mine. I looked outside and I saw my friend who told me about God walking around the track. I snuck out of my room, shut the door, and ran down the stairs to talk with him. I told him what happened last night. As we were walking, my cellmate was banging on the door, and that I was being paged on the pager on the room from the CO. I ran back up the stairs in my cell. Before I got halfway up, the door leading to the dorm popped open, and the CO stuck his head out and called my name. I thought I was busted for being out of my room, but instead he yelled, "Pack your stuff, you're going to the faith-based dorm." I never applied to go to the faith-based dorm. You have to apply to get into there. That was when I felt the first connection with God doing something in my life. There's nothing else that can explain that. It had to be God. I immediately packed my stuff and went. I told God I would do what he wanted. I did not talk to my friends in the jail. I just left. I was certain that it was God doing all these things for me. My first day there, I was getting situated. There were some guys I knew from the streets in there. One of the COs poked their head in the door and asked, "Does anyone want to talk to Tri-County?" It was the lady my parents and I had been trying to contact about getting into a treatment center. There she was, 10 feet away from me. I ran down, did a lot of running at that time. I talked to her. She wrote down my information. I went back into the dorm. The next day she showed up and called for me. I walked in and she puts her cell phone down on the table, dials a number, and to my surprise, my mother answers the phone. The Tri-County admissions counselor told her that I had been accepted into the program. There was no doubt that was God. I had been trying to contact her for months. Then I prayed, and less than 24 hours later, God provided me with a way into the faith-based dorm, away from the jail, and started to actually work on myself rather than just trying to survive in there. He also provided me with a path to a rehab rather than prison. In the faith-based dorm, we studied the Bible and did Bible worksheets. It began to dawn on me that all things were possible with God. 2 months later, January 4th, 2017, I went to New Beginnings Treatment Center. While attending, I was informed of a religious-based recovery program called Celebrate Recovery at Highland Park Church. I figured, God has got me here, so why not go and see what else he's got in store for me? On January 7th, I came to my first CR service. I walked in the door, I instantly felt welcomed. One of the leaders asked me if I would help greet at the door. So here I am, a junkie, fresh out of jail, tattoos all over my body, and I'm greeting people at the front door of a church. Only God. I loved the program, I loved the music. I felt like they were singing to me. The songs they were singing were the ones I heard in the faith-based dorm. The pastor delivered a message on denial. I remember that silly joke. Denial is not just a river in Egypt. Just an FYI, that was not Cameron who said that. I went to the newcomer class and found out this is exactly where I needed to be. I had learned that I needed something more than my own ways of trying to recover and heal. I needed something stronger, something spiritual. I needed God. On the ride home, the bus driver, Harry, asked me if I would be willing to greet again and if I wanted to get more involved with the program because they needed volunteers. So I did. I greeted the next week and helped in the cafe. There was a leader training session coming up that Harry asked if I would be willing to attend. Harry took his own vehicle, brought me here to the church for that training. I knew what the steps were, and I figured that was how to work the 12th step. I try to take this message to others and practice these principles in all of my affairs. I knew then I wanted to be a leader here. Linda and Harry interviewed me and asked if I wanted to be the co-leader for the men's chemical dependency group. I had already worked the steps between jail and another 12-step program and agreed to be the co-leader. I particularly liked the 6th step. After writing down all the junk in my life and sharing it with someone else, steps 4 and 5, 6 was when the real healing began for me. I became entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. That's when God started to make the changes in my life. I surrendered everything to him. I was ready for him to take all of that stuff away from me. I knew it might not be pleasant, but I wanted him to take it and do what he will with it. And he has taken it away from my womanizing, the violence from my past, my anger. I don't make mountains out of molehills anymore. For example, I've recently had a knee injury and have been unable to work. Before, I would have resorted to stealing stuff, selling drugs. The thought crossed my mind. I would have been angry and afraid. I would stress about it. I would say, how could this happen to me? It would have played the victim role. I don't have to play that role anymore. I know God will take care of me. Somehow, I still have money in my pocket. I'm still able to pay what bills I have. God has taken care of me. I knew that he would. As I've continued to come to CR and gotten closer to Jesus, my whole perspective on life has changed. I don't beat myself up for things I have done. It's all been a part of God's plan. I had to go through those things to get where I am now. Serenity is the big thing for me. I used to worry constantly about what is next or how I'm going to live life, but now I surrender it all to God and go with the flow. It's funny how everything falls into place just as it's supposed to when I surrendered to God. I know there is a reason for everything that happens. I have faith that it will all work out. There's a difference between powerlessness, hopelessness, and helplessness. I learned about that here in recovery. My family trusts me now. They did not trust me before. My ex-wife trusts me with my son, and I technically get him every other weekend, but she allows me to keep him whenever I want. Praise God. I have a great job and have the pleasure of working with another like-minded individual. I have great friends at CR, real friends. When I was struggling and going to jail, I never heard from those friends from my past. But these friends at CR actually care about my well-being. They don't want anything from me except for me. I've even had some success in my dating life. I've learned to not be selfish and care for her as a person, not someone I can use for my own pleasure. If you're new, I want to tell you there is a better way. It's all about surrendering and putting in the work to get the recovery. It's not going to be handed to you. You have to take certain steps to be able to gain the benefits of recovery. But let me assure you, it will be worth it if you put your all into it. God will provide. Today, I'm the leader of the Men's Chemical Dependency Group and the encourager on the lead team here at Highland Park Celebrate Recovery. I have the privilege of sharing what I have received with those who come here. I go to other 12-step groups and get to share what God has done for me and what can do for them as well if they choose. One of my favorite verses in the Bible is Romans 7:15 through 17. I don't understand myself at all, for I really want to do what is right, but I can't. I do what I don't want to do, what I hate. I know perfectly well that what I'm doing is wrong, and my bad conscience proves that I agree with these laws I am breaking. But I can't help myself because I am no longer doing it. It is a sin inside me that is stronger than I am that makes me do these evil things. That reminds me that I'm not alone. I'm not the only one who has struggled with sin. I did not choose to do these things. It was the sin inside me. That verse teaches me why I did the things I've done in the past. Since Jesus has washed those sins away from me, I no longer have to act that way. I thank God for that every single day. Thank you for letting me share.